Okay, guys, men's group community, really excited to have Craig Costello. Oh, I already mispronounced your name, Craig Casaletto, right?
Yes.
Craig Casaletto. Sorry, he just told me how to pronounce it, and I already messed it up. I'm really excited to have Craig here because he has a great coaching business going where he's helping men with confidence, success, mindset, accountability, those kinds of things. Craig was a police detective for 15 years. He was mentoring and coaching a lot of officers and some of his coworkers there. He really enjoyed that. And so after he left the force, he decided that he wanted to help men find their way, essentially, and turn their lives around. So, Craig, could you fill in the gaps there? Hopefully I didn't butcher your name too badly. And what did I miss?
No, you did an awesome job, by the way. A hell of a start. I'm originally an East Coaster, lived on the East Coast of the United States, born in Brooklyn, New York, lived in New Jersey after my stint in Brooklyn. And while I was there, since a young kid, I was always I felt like there was a calling to serve. Like I wanted to serve. I always was out helping the community and wanted to be involved. So naturally as a kid, I was like, you know what? I want to become a police officer. That's what I want to do. So I got involved in going to college around policing, became a police officer. I started off being a patrol officer for the first 5 or 6 years. Then I was able to get myself in detective bureau and loved the investigative part. So learned a lot, seen a lot, met some amazing people, both that I served within the community and who I worked with. And then, just like how life takes you down this path of you meet a special someone, I was lucky to do that and got married and had a couple of kids and then had to make a big decision in life. And that decision for me was like, do I continue to stay where I'm at on the East Coast, or I had an opportunity to move out to the West Coast because my wife has a business that was growing. And I made this crazy move. I left my job early, deferred my pension, kind of left a lot of benefits and money on the table, and decided to kind of look from a bigger approach and move out west with my family. And I'm currently living in Southern California in Orange County, which I got to say is beautiful. It's an amazing spot to live. And here I am. Like I came out here thinking like, all right, what the hell am I going to do? Like here I am. All I've known is policing. Like, what am I going to do? But I have a ton of skills now that I've learned that, I'm trying to figure out how I can apply them to helping other people still. And I figured out like, you know what? I really want to give back to men who have a lot of questions and struggling and need assistance and guidance and just someone that they can have a conversation with, an authentic conversation with. And coaching was the space for me to continue to do that. And started coaching, and here I am today.
Yeah, I'm happy you did, man, because I love what you're doing. You don't have a massive following yet, but what I really like about what you're doing is how you talk about these things. I find it very approachable. I find it feet on earth. And I see a lot of men's coaches out there, and it makes me gag with how they're approaching it. And I saw how you're approaching it at Odd Man Up and on your Instagram account there. And I was just like, oh, I like how this guy's talking about this stuff. Men can use this. So really excited to have you here and to dig into these topics today.
Awesome. I appreciate it, John. Thanks.
Great. And why are you drawn to helping men turn their lives around? Because that's your tagline on your Instagram. Like, why is that why do you find that meaningful?
I find it meaningful because one, I can relate to it personally, and two, I think that there's a massive need for it. I think that there's still this kind of old school stereotypical take on what men should be doing and how they should be acting and how they should handle the problems that come about in their lives. And I think it's hard for men to want to express the things that they want to express because someone either told them that they can't do that, or they're kind of bought into a story that's not true. And I kind of felt like, listen, there's a different way to go about this. And I want to be able to help guys get through those things. And a lot from my personal experience, in addition to my professional experience, say, hey, listen, these are the things I saw and learned. This is my training, but this is also what I've experienced personally. And I think one of the biggest things that I could I think it really resonates with other guys is that I talk to them. I say, listen, I tell them my backstory, and I say, listen, it allows me to tell you these two words. And these two words that are really important to me is I understand. Like I understand, like based on my experience, like where you are now, where are you going through, whether it's a breakup, whether it's a career change, or whether it's taking a risk. And I think that's really kind of done well. And I think it's really resonated in a different approach, like you talked about before, with helping men.
Yeah, a lot of people don't understand why men would need to be helped. Why do you think men need this kind of a thing, or a men's group, or these kinds of things?
I think especially nowadays, I think there's more stress on men than ever before. I think, society stresses, relationship stresses, kind of like there's a lot of, especially with, social media and the internet and seeing what other people are doing, thinking that we need to be more, not giving ourselves enough credit for what we're doing, thinking that we're not enough. I think the whole definition of, success and what it really takes to be a man is kind of like slanted in my personal opinion. So I think it gets guys like they're starting off from a position of a deficit as opposed to being ahead. They feel like there's these expectations that they may never reach.
I can relate to that. And I see a lot of guys coming into men's group feeling that way for sure. And let's start with this topic. Okay. So like, if a guy is facing a challenge, and we'll get into some specific challenges later that guys in men's group tend to face, like saving a relationship or mindset or accountability or confidence or these kinds of things. But let's say a guy's coming to turn his life around. What does he need to know? Like and turn his life around, meaning make some positive change, some bigger positive changes. What does he need to know at a high level?
He needs to know it's not going to be easy. He needs to know that he's going to have to make a change. He needs to know that it's going to require some consistency and accountability. He needs to know that he has the ability to do it, right? And I think there's probably a lot of people out there that men come across, a lot of other people, men, coaches, influencers, that almost tell people that they can't. They're kind of like, they set these unreasonable expectations of what it takes to succeed, and it automatically puts men into the thought process that they'll never get there. And it's like, it's just another thing that pushes them down further as opposed to lifting them up. And it's almost like counterintuitive, because you think like they're there to help men grow and build businesses and do all these great things. But in turn, they're making it harder for men, at least from a mental perspective, from what they hear and see, let's say over social media or something else, a video, whatever the case may be. But yeah, I think the knowing that they need to make a change with their mindset and getting out of their comfort zone and taking action is really the key.
Yeah. And do you find a lot of guys feel resistance towards that? Because I see a lot of guys, especially getting in their middle age, coming into men's group, and luckily we get the guys that are more open than the average guy, but a lot of guys are very rigid in their mindset and in their perceptions of life and how they approach their life and the actions that they're taking to change things.
Yeah, I see that with men a lot. And I think it's a matter of like, kind of what I'll tell you, Sean, is like, we only know what we know, right? So it's like if that's the way we've always lived and that's the story we've always been told, either from someone else or by ourselves, that's the way we'll continue to live. And until we really kind of figure out like there's a better way to do it, or you get to the point where the pain is just really kind of so great that you know that you need to make a change, that's going to be the spark that lights the fire for you to want to take the next step and be more open to the things that you were for a long time against.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So this parlays well into the topic of mindset. Let's talk about mindset for a minute.
Sure.
What are some components of a winning mindset, of a mindset that would make for a successful, fulfilling life?
I think the first thing is, Sean, is that you have to change your perspective on the word failure. Like, you need to be comfortable with failure and not look at it in the negative tone that it's often used, but look at it as a method of learning about maybe what didn't work and what you need to change. Like, you're never going to appreciate like the good things that you're about to achieve and the things that you're going to succeed in your life. You're never going to really appreciate them unless you go through failure. And I'll give you a perfect example. And it starts at a young age. I assistant coach my son's baseball team, and
Great.
they're losing like every game. And the kids like don't understand, like it's not like they're at a level right now where they want to win, but they don't understand like the value yet of losing, right? But in the beginning it was really hard, but I think they're starting to understand that like when they do finally win their first game, right, they're going to really appreciate it that much more because they know what it feels like to lose. And not just that, it's also taught these kids compassion because now they know what it feels like to lose. So when the other team that they face does, they are more along the lines of showing more compassion to the team, more sportsmanship, and taking more like good solid actions that like and learning lessons as a kid that you normally wouldn't learn. So I think that's like one of the things is like learning from your failures and learning them as not as something as negative, but something that you can use to help you just get further along your journey to success.
That makes a lot of sense. Another one that comes up for me is humility, just like being humble, like being open to, hey, you're not doing some things as well as you could be doing, or you need to improve these parts of your life. That can be really difficult, hey?
Yeah, 100%. And the first thing I thought of when you said that was, responsibility. Like responsibility is a really important thing. Like you need to hold yourself responsible. And I think a lot of times the reason why we have the problems we have is that we're kind of deflecting responsibility from ourselves to somebody else. I mean, if you think about it, like if everyone took responsibility for their actions, talking from a law enforcement perspective, we wouldn't have the need for a court system, right? Everyone would be like, yeah, I messed up. I did that. Just give me my lumps, right? But everyone's like shifting responsibility somewhere. And that's why the legal system's making so much money for the states that they operate in. But it's really that reality. It's just like the humbleness, the responsibility, the not blaming others. I think once you can kind of grasp that, and it's cool to be a man and say, yes, I've messed up, or yeah, I wasn't my best today. Once you can kind of come to terms with that and feel good saying that and knowing that it's going to help you, that's kind of really where it does start.
Yeah, it's the first step is realizing, okay, I could polish this up. It's no different than being like, oh, my car's not working. I'm going to take it to mechanic. Then you can access tools that are going to help you fix the problem.
Yeah.
But you're not going to be able to fix the problem without admitting you have the problem in the first place.
Yeah. And you know what? That's why a lot of people, or a lot of men in particular, don't get involved with men's groups or don't pursue coaching or don't do those things. Either they just don't have the awareness that they have a problem or refuse to see that there's a problem or an obstacle in their way that they need help with. And they just don't pull the trigger on wanting to do anything about it, and then kind of just like struggle with, the way life is presented to them.
Yeah. And kind of resent how life has been presented to them.
Yeah.
And kind
100%.
of get upset about it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Interesting. What else do you guys need to know about, building a winning mindset? Like what other components are there?
I think for me, it's you have to be comfortable with holding yourself and having someone else hold you accountable. Like we all have these great ideas. We all read these great books and see these great videos and get inspired. We could find inspiration, especially nowadays. Like the inspiration's out there. It's like, what are you doing like with that inspiration? Like, sometimes we feel like, hey, you know what? I saw this great video today. I heard this great podcast. I read this great book. And that's where it starts and that's where it ends. Like in order to really kind of develop that winning mindset, you got to be always a student. Like you always have to learn. You have to be in that learning mindset, and you have to be willing to take action. Because I know a lot of people who've read a shitload of books and don't do anything with the information. They just tell me the books they read. Because I usually ask them, it's like, hey, well, you have a good book recommendation? I'm like, yeah, I read this book. It's like, have you done it? So what'd you like about it? Oh, I liked A, B, C, and D. Awesome. Have you used any of the information? Not really. But I read it.
Well, I'm going to get to it. Yeah,
it's going to get to it. And usually that's kind of like, no, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah. So that's a good example of somebody who might need accountability.
Yeah.
Could you share why we're talking about mindset, success, confidence, these kinds of things. And from what I see from guys coming to men's group, accountability is a big component of getting through these more difficult things because they're usually not done in a day. They usually take time, and accountability is a really important piece of that. Could you talk a little bit about accountability and why it's important and how you try to include it in what you do?
I really kind of describe it this way. Life for all of us is really a team sport. And what I mean by that is like, if we try to go at life alone, it's really hard. We're going to have difficulties. We're going to have things that we just don't have the experience on trying to overcome. And I think that's why it's important to find your tribe, find your like-minded people, find those people who are going to hold you accountable, but also give you that fearless feedback and help you get to where you want to get to faster. The reason why I mention that is because that's part of accountability, is having those people that are going to hold you accountable, or you hold yourself accountable. I think a lot of guys struggle with that. Like if you don't have the structure, which is really important in your life, you may not be able to hold yourself accountable. And you need that component in order for you to really achieve your goals. Like the start is really kind of, you develop that really good and positive mindset. You set some goals, you develop a plan how you want to get there. And then comes the actual action component. And part of that action component is like, okay, I'm going to do A, B, C, and D. Okay, who's going to hold you to that? And when you don't do it, who's going to hold you responsible for not doing it? And I think it's harder for men to go to someone else and say they didn't follow through than it is for them to look in the mirror and say it to themselves. And I found typically that's usually the case.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I've seen it in MensGroup, and I've seen it in my own life, in my own personal MensGroup, how even just like relatively casual accountability can make a big difference. Just knowing that guys are going to ask you in 2 weeks from now about it will often make me do the thing.
Yeah.
So I'm a big fan of that as well. Yeah.
Another thing I talk about, and you probably see this in the coaching space, MensGroup space, is about having skin in the game. It's like you need to make a commitment up front. Because I think what happens is I've run groups before where I'm like, you know what, I want to get a bunch of guys together and we're going to do like a fitness component. We're going to have 5 guys lose 8 pounds in 8 days. Everyone's like, yeah, you know what, I want to, or 8 weeks. I want to do that. Yeah, let's do it. And then got the guys together. There was no charge or anything like that. It was just like, let's work together and do it. But I found that when people don't have a commitment, whether it be a commitment to someone else as far as them publicly announcing or saying that they're doing this, or a financial commitment, it's easy for you to back out. It's easy for you not to perform. And I think that's also part of the accountability component, is having some type of skin in the game. Put something up front that's going to keep you honest, that's going to hold you, the other kind of like thing that's going to keep you accountable. So I think that's also an important component to accountability too, that if you're going to, maybe if it's with a friend or it's with a coach, it's with somebody, get that, somehow figure out how you're going to be able to make some type of commitment before you start that, hey, if I don't do this, I'm going to lose this. Or if I don't do this, I'm going to have to do this. That's going to definitely help.
A lot of guys, come to you or come to MensGroup in places where they feel down and out, or they're like facing some big adversity or some challenge that already feels really uncomfortable. And I've noticed that a lot of guys have almost like a gag reflex or like a knee-jerk reaction to the word accountability. Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh, that's, almost like that they begrudge it. Like, that's the last thing I need, is to be told what I'm not doing right. Or, so a lot of guys try to avoid accountability when they're in those places where they need it the most. What would you say to those guys?
I'd say, it has nothing to do with me telling you what you need to do. It actually is just a matter of me asking you questions and you coming up with your own answers, and you find out what you need to do and what you need to commit to. And I think that's I think when it comes to coaching and accountability and stuff like that, I think a lot of guys are like, why don't I hire a coach or have someone hold me accountable just to tell me what to do? And it has nothing to do with, I think in this space, I get into the habit of I'm not consulting someone, I'm coaching someone. It's a matter of asking questions. In the course of asking questions to someone, people come up with their own answers. They're like, aha, you know what? Yes, I know I need to do that. And it's more of like, I want to do this, not you're telling me to do it. And I think that's where the big light bulb moment comes. And that's really kind of what sparks change for them as far as accountability.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And do you find this applies to, like, accountability applies to different challenges equally? Like, if some guy's going through a divorce and he's trying to recover from that in a healthy way, versus some guy's trying to make more money, versus some guy who's trying to set better boundaries, versus some guy's trying to get over a porn addiction?
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's just a matter of like the narrative around what you commit to changes, right? So if it's, you want to have a better relationship, or you're trying to, get through a divorce or trying to avoid a divorce, let's say, maybe committing to listening more, being an active listener, being able to, improve your communication skills, just a variety of different things when it comes to that. So yeah, there's definitely a lot, depending on exactly what you're trying to, wrap your head around or overcome. It's really kind of going to be tailored towards those type of things.
Yeah, that's great. And I just listed off a bunch of issues there. One of the issues that a lot of guys bring up in MensGroup is confidence, and just a lack of self-worth. And I know that's something that you help a lot of men with. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on men feeling low in their confidence. How can they find their worth and feel better, feel more confident day to day?
Yeah, I could tell you a lot of men obviously struggle with that. I've struggled with that for a long time. I think you just have to start working at it. Like you would go to the gym, Sean, and build muscles and do that. You got to work at your mindset and changing your mindset in the same way. Like, you got to put in the reps. You got to be consistent with, finding the good resources that are going to get you to think in a more positive way. And I think really that's really the root of it. Like once you start getting into that whole growth mindset, place, it's going to really build a solid foundation to this metaphorical house that you're building in order to create a better life for yourself. And I think that's really kind of the key is just being open and finding the resources that are going to change the story that's been lingering with you for a very long time. And I'll probably say, like, most guys listening to this or watching to this, I'm going to probably say that the majority of us, like, that story is completely false. But for whatever reason, we've latched onto it for a very long time. Whether someone told us this story or whether we created it or through an assumption that we made based on an experience in our life, like, it's like letting go of those stories and learning that there's a better way.
How can guys think about how confidence can affect their relationships? Like in one of your stories there on Instagram, I saw that you're talking about you teach people how to treat you. So could you elaborate on that?
Yeah. So it's like, if you're the type of person who allows other people to treat you negatively, and a lot of this comes back to self-worth, it's like people are going to get conditioned to treat you that way. If you don't stand up for yourself, people are going to continue to take advantage of you. Yeah. And a lot of it has to do with self-worth and just being confident and standing up for yourself. But it comes with practice. It's not a light switch thing. It's not like, hey, you know what? I'm going to walk in, I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning and boom, I'm going to be the most confident person out there. But again, it goes back to the awareness component and being aware of it. And like, hey, this is something I need to work on. And this is something that I want to figure out because I know it's going to help me when it comes to my personal relationships. It's going to help me foster a better relationship with my wife, my kids, and my family. And it's going to, because you know what, in the end, like, confidence is attractive, and it's attractive in a romantic relationship. It's attractive in a professional relationship. It's attractive in the relationship with yourself. When you look at the mirror and you see a more confident person, you feel better. You know, when you get up in the morning and you're more confident, your spouse feels better about you, is more attracted to you, wants to spend more time, figure out what the hell are you doing that all of a sudden I'm seeing this difference in you. Same thing with family. Family, like, holy geez, like, you left a negative situation. Like, I'll give you an example. Left a negative situation on the East Coast, moved out to the West Coast. Oh my God, I've seen this amazing change in you. What's going on? Like California's done you really well. It's like, yeah, it's like proximity. I'm around different people. I'm in a different environment. I'm around situations that are more positive, and it builds that confidence and it leaks into other parts of your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And how can a man know if he's having confidence issues? Because I think it's one of those things that can, like, just quietly run in the background and can almost, like, be like how they think they're supposed to be feeling. Like, that's how I felt with my low self-worth, right? It's like that was just my default from the time I was a kid. So I didn't realize that life didn't have to feel like that. So, like, what are some signs that you might be struggling with a man might be struggling with confidence and might need some help?
Well, I think the thing is just, evaluate really kind of how they feel about themselves. Do they see the fault in things, or they find that they're being grateful for things, or that they're really appreciative for what they have? I think it's kind of taking an audit of your perspective. It's like, what's your perspective on life? What's your perspective on your life, your personal life, your professional life? Is it negative? Do you feel like that you're optimistic? Do you feel like you can achieve your goals, or do you feel like you're just kind of going along for the ride? Like, and I think when you feel like, hey, listen, life is kind of just happening to me, it's kind of one of those things where maybe you just need to say, like, hey, you know what? Maybe I just need to focus more on building my confidence here, because I think maybe my perspective needs to change in order for me to change.
So, Craig, you talk about success a lot in your media, and your appearances and on your Instagram. How do you define success? Because it's something that can be very broad in terms of success.
100%. Well, success for me is simply just being better than the person I was yesterday. If I could be better than the person I was yesterday, that means I'm successful. And that's kind of a broad way to say it, but when I think about it, it's like, am I a better dad than I was yesterday? Am I a better husband than I was yesterday? Am I a better business owner than I was yesterday? Like that's success to me. I don't want to, and I think that's really the most important thing is just me being better than who I was the day before.
Yeah, that makes sense. What holds guys back from success the most?
I think simply it's just they've been either told the story or they have a skewed idea of what success really means. They're having someone else define what success means to them. And that's essentially the why I started this platform on social media, at least with the Odd Man Up, is it was just like I would go out there looking for information to help guys self-development information for guys. And I would see the typical guy who was the serial entrepreneur in front of a jet, drinking some whiskey, long beard, telling you that you needed to do A, B, C, and D in order to be successful. You needed to make a certain amount of money. You needed to own a certain car. If you're not making $1 million today, what are you doing? Like, I just did not resonate with that. And I'm not going to have anyone else decide what success means to me. It's subjective. It's my decision to decide. But I think we get caught up in keeping up with the Joneses, so to speak, or what's everyone else doing, and that whole comparison thing. And I think that's why I think a lot of guys are struggling right now, is that they feel like they need to make a lot of money. They need to drive a certain car. They need to wear a certain type of clothes or shoes or do whatever to be successful. And that's not the truth. Like success could mean for somebody, Sean, just getting out of bed today. Success could mean just like putting food on the table for their family. You know, it's just, and that's why I felt like there was just a better way to resonate with men when it comes to success. And that really kind of what's birthed that platform on social media, but also just to encourage men to, you know, find their own definitions of success and what you feel like you want to get out of this life. Because you know what, every day we're cashing in hours, days of our life that we'll never get back. Like, let's not waste it on these things that in the end may not necessarily be important to the life that we really want to live.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Do you have any suggestions for how guys can define or set that goal of the life they want to live? Because I remember when I was down and out, and when I've seen guys down and out in men's group, it's like it can be unclear. There can be a lot of confusion around what I actually want. I know I don't want these things that are happening to me, the divorce or the being broke or whatever. But like, I don't know. How can guys actually define their what would be success for them and set that goal?
I would just spend some time figuring out what your why is. Like, why do you do what you do? You know, what do you want to do? Like, what are you passionate about? And then when you realize like, hey, this is my why, this is what I want to give back to this amazing life that I have, or this is how I want to, you know, show up for my family, my friends, or whatever it is. Like, once you figure out your why, that's going to really kind of develop the blueprint for figuring out what success means to you. And figuring out, I think one thing that also accompanies your why is your values. I think when you define your values and what you stand for and what you believe in, you know, if you can achieve those things, that really is going to get you to that being successful, right? And whether you're a business owner, is it more about the money, let's say, or is it more about what you're delivering through that business that's really important to you? And is that what's going to make you successful? Is it just having an amazing family life? Is that, you know, it's just a matter of figuring out what that why is, defining your values, and then taking some action.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And for me in those times, it was easy to let myself go towards distractions or just like maybe even bury myself in self-improvement material instead of taking a bit of time and stillness. Like Ryan Holiday, Stillness is the Key. It's a great book. Talks about how all the great leaders and all in the world, they take time away from their things to get clear on what they want and what they need to do, so that they can then define that. Because if you just stay busy, you're not going to be able to, right?
Yeah, and that's massive. And you know, another thing too is that it's okay if you're doing that, because that's kind of the narrative that's out there. It's like grind, run, do, get more done, work longer hours. That's the only way that you're going to be able to achieve whatever it is you want to achieve in your life. And people and men feel uncomfortable with stopping, pausing, taking a time to decompress, taking your time to walk away from what you're doing with work or whatever, just to give that back to yourselves. And it really is, it's an investment, and it will pay dividends. It's just a matter of getting more comfortable with wanting to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And blocking out the time to do that. And the more I do that, the better I seem to do in life. It's like that old saying, I forget who it was, some famous person like Benjamin Franklin, some incredible leader said, if I had 6 hours to cut down a tree, it's been 5 sharpening the axe. What he means by that is take the time to get clear on what you need and to prepare for the what you need to do.
Yeah, it's again, that proactivity component. It's like, be proactive with your life, be proactive with your mind, be proactive with your relationships, and you're going to start to see some amazing things happen.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I resonate with that for sure. And you mentioned something a few minutes ago, which is saving relationships, working on relationships, smoothing out a relationship. That's a huge topic in Men's Group. A lot of the guys that come in are either, want to improve the relationship or more so save a relationship that might be on the rocks, avoid a divorce, that kind of thing. So what do you typically advise guys around? How do you get things to be smooth with your wife? How do you get things to work? How do you make the relationship enjoyable through all the peaks and valleys of, a busy life?
Yeah, well, I can tell you from personal experience, one of the things that's worked for me is being very comfortable with communication with that significant other in your life, and understanding that the communication may be difficult, but it's a matter of taking the emotion out of it, like communicating when the emotion's not there, because typically when things are heated and you're emotional, you say things that you later regret. And usually when you're in an emotional state, like if you say something that makes you feel good, you probably shouldn't say it. Like, it's one of those things. It's like you really need to be able to communicate with that other person in your life and be transparent. Like, hey, listen, I know this is something that you may not want to hear, but I want to be honest and I want to be forward with you of how I'm feeling, and understand this is coming from a place where I want to make this work. I'm just trying to be honest I don't want to, and I think that's where a lot of guys struggle. It's like sometimes they feel like their concerns won't be heard or won't be met, but at least you can go out there and say, you know what, I want to make this better. Like, making the effort to want to ask somebody how they're doing, how you can make your wife or spouse or that person's day a 10 today. Like, how can I do that for you? Like, and just do it not as a reaction to something else, but do it because you genuinely want to see things work. And that'll go a long way. I think being proactive in your relationship as opposed to reactive. Like, be proactive with building a solid relationship as opposed to reactive. Like, when something happens, like, oh, I probably need to do something, or I probably need to take my wife out, or I probably need to do something. Like, if you're doing it as a reaction to something that happened in your life, it's probably too late. Like, you need to really kind of jump on that and be proactive. And if you could start looking at these things proactively, I think it's going to build better relationships. It's going to build better, long-lasting relationships. And I think that it'll probably surprise the people the person that you're with, being like, wow, they're really making an effort to want to get this to work. Something that I haven't done before. So.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I think a lot of the breakdowns in communication and relationships that we see in Men's Group are from like a medium to long-term lack of presence with the partner, just kind of going through the motions, taking the kids to school, going to work, doing whatever, and not, like you said, sitting down and having those sometimes difficult conversations. Because then on the other side of those conversations, you feel connected, you feel heard, those kinds of things, hopefully. Yeah. I couldn't agree with that more.
Sean, it's like one thing I've talked about before with some other men is that they have these kind of sessions that's called either fix it or feel it, right? So they have a session with their spouse. Like, listen, the spouse is stressed about something. And it's like, okay, is this a fix it moment or is it a feel it moment? If it's a feel it moment, this is your opportunity to vent. Like, I'm just going to be here to listen. And you just sit there and you just listen. And you just listen to what they say. And you just let them get it out. And you let them express how they're feeling. And they feel like they're being heard. And then there's the fix it aspect of it. Like, honey, is this a fix it thing? Do you want me to help you fix this? You listen to what they have to say, and then you offer your experience, you offer your input, you offer your advice. There's going to be those times where your spouse is just going to it's a feel it moment. They just need someone to talk to. And they need someone to just experience what's been going on personally, professionally. And there's going to be a fix it where they need your advice on something. And I think offering that is a massive tool to help in a relationship.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Is that something that you had to deal with? It sounds like leaving the forest and starting a new life. Like obviously those are big changes, and there's a lot within that. I imagine that that's something that you had to navigate yourself, eh?
Yeah, I mean, use it all the time. I use it every day. Like, is it like because we all gonna deal with things that stress us out, and we're not immune to that, and that's normal, and that's okay. It's just like I just need to know, like, what do I need to be for you right now? Like, how can I best support you right now? And that's really important to say. Like, how can I best support you? Like, do you want me to just listen to what you have to say, or do you want me to kind of give my input? Because as guys too, especially when things are emotional, it's easy to want to just tell people what to do. It's either want to tell your spouse what to do. Like, you need to do this. You got to stop doing this. You can't be there anymore. You got to do that. And I think it's easier for us to want to do it. And not coming from a bad place per se, but thinking of like, hey, we're in a position as a men to fix problems. Like, so that's kind of what I need to do here. And that's not always the case. And I think that by offering that option, I think it goes a long way in your relationships, especially with that person that's significant other in your life.
Yeah, and the same goes for friendships and coworker relationships and acquaintances or coworker. I find that making time and space to make each other feel heard is probably the most important thing in any relationship, isn't it?
Oh yeah, 100%. I think that's what people want. I think nowadays too, you're always being told what to do. Everyone's always being said, you have to do this, you need to do this. I think I think things would be so much better in relationships and probably just in society in general if we just listened more. And I think because people would get a chance to decompress and actually express themselves, and they would just feel better. Like, when you get something off your chest, it just feels better. It just feels good. And that's like the essence of a men's group. Like, you could talk about things that are bothering you that you can't talk with other people, and you feel like you're heard. And it feels like, wow, that's why I walked away from this call feeling so much better, because I feel like there's guys out there or people out there that heard what I had to say and understood what I had to say.
Totally. Yeah. One of the guys in our men's group said it well. He said the most powerful two words in the English language are "me too."
Yeah.
And it's like just having people relate to you is just, can solve the problem. Just having somebody empathize with you. And so that's something I try to use in my own relationship, is just making it clear that I hear what their emotional experience is, even if I find it super frustrating and irrational, it's just acknowledging it, first step, always the first step, just acknowledge it.
Yeah. And there's also there's a lot of value in someone just expressing themselves. Sometimes they hear what they say, to actually audibly like hear themselves talk and hear them express what they're saying helps them come to terms with what they're saying. Just kind of being like, wow, like sometimes they just need to express it and just get it out. And they feel better about it. They feel more confidence behind it now. It's just like, this has been stuck in here. There's men who've been holding on to things their whole life that they have had no one to express them to. They've been holding on. These cords are like really strong and they've been holding on to them for a long time. They just got to find the right place to cut them. And once they cut them by expressing them, that's when they really start to make, wow, like that feels so much better. I feel so much more at ease and so much more now empowered.
Yeah, often in my own experiences, and also seeing guys experience this in men's group, it's those really scary, I hate to use this word, but vulnerable things that when we actually express them to our partner or somebody important to us, they're actually well received because it's our truth, Mm-hmm. Like it actually leads to beautiful conversations and often actually fixing getting more to the root of the problem.
Yeah, that's a fear thing too, Sean, because I think a lot of guys are like, if I say this, my wife or spouse or whatever is going to blow up. Like, I can't say this. I can't do this. Like, they're already there's this narrative going on in their head that they can't before they even do it, thinking that an assumption is that it's going to make things worse than it already is. When in reality, it actually make things better.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. That's what I found. So we have a tremendous amount of guys coming to men's group every day, every week, every month. And a big part of the reason why they're joining a men's group is because they feel like they don't have anybody to talk to. They have acquaintances, but they don't have real friends, and it's a big blind spot for a lot of people, but especially for men. They don't even realize it's a problem until adversity strikes. And then they look around and realize there's nobody to seek guidance from, or even just like use as a sounding board to get stuff off their chest. Why do you think that is? After working with men, after working with, frontline, first responders, like police, especially very masculine alpha men. Why do you think it is that guys don't have anybody to talk to?
I believe that they've been told a story that's not true, is that they have to figure these things out themselves. It's that they have, hey, this is, you don't want to tell any, because I think expression historically for men has been a sign of weakness. I think it's been a negative stereotype for men to want to express themselves and have emotion and cry, or to just tell people that they're struggling. Because if I tell you that I'm struggling, especially I notice this law enforcement, like you can't, a lot of reason why it's a lot of addiction and a lot of divorce and a lot of things in law enforcement is because guys can't like they can't find someone else that relates to what they're dealing with. And two, they're conditioned not to express any of these things that they've been holding on to for such a long time, because it would be seen as a weakness, and they feel like they're going to be looked at differently. They're never going to get an opportunity to advance, or they're going to be thought of differently, or not being a man. They're going to feel like people are going to lose confidence in them, and so many other things. And to be honest, that may have been true a long time ago, but I think nowadays, I don't believe that. I don't believe that. And if you're hanging around with people that believe that, then you need to maybe take an audit of who you're hanging out with and think about finding some people who are going to be there and help you in a positive way.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Actually, it's interesting. So when you look back at history, men were really affectionate with each other until about 1950, when this whole concept of gay and the negative association with gay became a popular thing. And I'm not saying there weren't gay people before that, but I just mean like it was viewed as being a negative thing. And then in that society, before then, there's a great article on the Art of Masculinity blog, which is a great blog for men, and talks about the history of male affection. And up until the 50s, like you see pictures of guys in the 20s, 30s, 40s, even way back, hugging, holding hands, even going farther than hugging, like kind of cuddling a little bit, but in like not a sexual way, you know? And we're building pyramids on the beach where they're all on top of each other and they all fall into each other. That was totally acceptable until the 50s, when all of a sudden the culture, especially in Western society and North America, really shunned that. And the same is true for men sharing their feelings and being vulnerable. Actually, before these industrial and agricultural revolutions, like in tribal life, men were encouraged to be emotional as well. It's just in these really hard situations of working on farms and in the factories and stuff, where men didn't have the opportunity or the luxury to share emotions. So yeah, it's interesting how we're actually hardwired for that, how most of human history we were encouraged to do that. And it's just in the last 100, 200 years where that's been completely stomped out of us.
Yeah. I think one thing we need to do as men towards other men is be able to say the words, I love you. Like, if you think about it, like, you know, if someone means something, if there's a friend or someone in their life, like, there's no shame in telling them that you love them. You know, I've met great people. There's a lot of friends in my life. I'm just like, dude, I love you, man. Thank you. You know, thank you for you. And I think a lot of guys for a long time be like, I never want to say I love you, because their mind immediately goes to like, I'm heterosexual. Why did I tell another man that I love them? Right. But it's not that. It's more so along the lines of like expressing how much they mean to you through those three words. And it's okay. Like that's okay. And I think, you know, we need to do more of that. And I think there would be more guys, especially nowadays, that'd be willing to receive that.
Yeah, I think so too. You know, even when I get that from, I have close guy friends where I'm like, oh, that's nice when they say it. And my guy friends and I do. And I think that's kind of rare. But I have acquaintances who are just like really expressive, and sometimes they'll say it, or like closer friends or colleagues or something, they'll say it. And I'm like, ugh, you know, even I have a hard reaction to it. So I think the more that we can say it, the more we get comfortable with it. It's like a muscle, right?
Yeah, true. And there's a lot of, you know, the meaning behind it, right? It's like someone that you have that connection with, that you've known for a long time, you know, and you feel comfortable with telling that person. It's not like you're, you know, I don't know if I would go up to a random person and say that, but I would go to a close friend, someone that I've actually had experiences with, somewhere we bonded, like, and say, you know what, it's a short way of me saying, I really appreciate you. I appreciate everything you've done for me. I appreciate you being there for me. I appreciate your insight. I appreciate sometimes you just listening. And it's just a really, just a cool connecting form of appreciation.
Yeah, definitely. I actually say it to an old female friend of mine who I used to date, and my girlfriend caught me saying that one day. She's like, "Oh, you told this other girl you love her?" I'm like, "Yeah, not in a romantic way. I just love who she is. You know, I love what she's about. I love how she shows up in the world. I love her energy. I'm not attracted to her, you know." And it wasn't like a fight, and she wasn't suspicious, but I just wanted to explain the distinction. And I think that's really what I mean when I say to my guy friends too. You know, it's just like, I just love who you are. I love how you show up in the world. You know.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that.
Yeah, Craig, any last words for the guys in the men's group community, guys who are facing adversities, guys who are trying to become better men?
If you're struggling, if you're having a tough time trying to figure out a bad relationship, whether it be personal or professional, like, you guys have the tools that you need to. It's just a matter of finding those people that are going to bring them out in you. You finding that support, finding that encouragement, having someone keep you accountable. It's not this far off dream of a life that you think will never exist. It's a lot closer than you think, and it's a lot more achievable than you think. It's just be proactive, find the right people, and you're going to crush it.
Yeah, I agree. And access tools like Craig's coaching or a men's group, you know, I couldn't agree more. Like if you looked at where I was like even 3 years ago, it's like I was kind of down and out, you know, and it's like you look at where I'm at now and it's like, wow, what a life. And that's just from doing all the things you're talking about today, Craig. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sure you're doing things on your terms.
Yep.
Right.
I am.
And that feels pretty damn good for guys. It's like I've been told what to do my whole life. It's nice to be able to do things on my own terms and make my decisions and feel good about those decisions.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. People that are just following the herd like sheep, that are just on social media all day and doing the job that they think would be most secure or that would make them sound the best to their friends or whatever. I think that they want this kind of thing. I think they want to be able to define it and have things on their own terms, you know? And so I want to encourage guys to do that because here's two guys that are, Craig and Sean.
Yeah. It's not easy. And it does come to a point where you feel like I have to make a change in order for me to get to where I want to get to. But invest in yourself. You definitely deserve it. Invest in yourself.
Mm-hmm. Where can people find more on you, Craig?
You can find me on Instagram at oddmanup. Feel free to send me a DM if you have any questions. I am an open book. Whatever I can do to help and provide value, I am here. So please reach out. That's probably the best spot to get me right now.
Awesome, Craig. Well, thanks for the time, man. I'm sure that's going to help a lot of good men, and I look forward to chatting with you again soon.
Awesome, Sean. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.